What are the best reactions in Pathfinder 2nd Edition? Which ones are they? And how will you react to this video? It better be positively, because do you know how much work I put into this video? It was at least some, I'll have you know. This is the Dominomicon, authored and hosted by me, Dominic. The Dominomicon is dedicated to all nerdy things, with my current obsession being the TTRPG Pathfinder 2nd Edition. In this video chapter, I'm going to go over what I believe are the top 25 reactions for Pathfinder 2e. I've gone for 25 because, not including musings, April Fools, and shorts, this is the channel's official 50th video. And I was going to do top 50, but that's mental, and I do have a life, sort of. So I went for top 25 instead because that's divisible by 2. Because 50 and 25. Maths, yeah? I'll start with a little explanation of reactions and why you should definitely make sure you have some, and then we'll dive into the list itself, and there's over 500 reactions PCs can use in Pathfinder 2e, so creating this list was rather tricky to say the least. If you want to see more PF2e content similar to this, please consider subscribing and sharing this video with a friend, etc. Regardless, thanks for watching. But let's start the music and see how everyone reacts to it. Right, so every turn in Pathfinder 2e, you get 3 actions, free actions up to GM discretion, and a singular reaction. Though some classes get a few reactions per round, like the Guardian or Fighter, Champion, etc. They usually have to take feats for that. As I've said many a time before, actions are power. This game is built around the 3-action economy, but one of the major parts of that action economy is in fact your reaction, which can be effectively seen as a 4th action every turn. This means that if you are playing as a build or class that does not have a reaction, you need to get one ASAP. Spellcasters in particular don't tend to have a lot of reactions, but there are spells that are reactions themselves. Early on, they're probably not worth taking because you're going to need your spell slots for your very limited spellcasting abilities, whether that's going to be an area of effects, damaging ability, debuffs, heals, etc. But later on, when you start getting more than, say, 10 spell slots, you may as well be slotting in a bunch of reactive spells, if you will. And that's because those lower ranked spells are not going to be all that powerful, but the reactions can still do quite a lot. So absolutely keep all that in mind. Trying to get yourself a reaction if your build does not have one, and if you do have one and you basically never use it, try and get a different one. Trust me when I say that extra action that you get in between your turns is fundamental to the action economy in PF2e. As for reactions themselves, one thing that makes them a little bit different to normal actions is that they tend to have triggers. You can't just do them whenever. It's either an enemy moves out of your space, or an enemy tries to cast a spell, or even you do a particular thing, etc. And one of the best things about reactions is that if they're done outside of your turn, they do not contribute to the multiple attack penalty, nor can be affected by it. However, this does mean that if you're somehow using your reaction inside of your turn, unless it specifies otherwise, like Reactive Strike, it's going to contribute to the multiple attack penalty if it has some sort of attack involved, including a normal strike. Just bear that in mind. Right, onto the rules for this list. Rarity or access, as ever, doesn't matter to me. All are included. I'm not just including the higher level reactions. Most of this list is going to be for your entire journey from 1 to 20. As there are hundreds and hundreds of these reactions, I've just chosen the ones that I have seen in combat that have had great effect. They're not necessarily the bestest ones, but they're definitely very strong. I'm not going to be including ancestry-based reactions or item-based reactions, as they could be separate videos all on their own. However, I will have some runners-up at the end, which will include some of the ancestry-based reactions. As ever, this list will be in no particular order, though I'll be starting with the lower levels and going up, with the latter reactions mostly being spells, because that's just where most of the fun reactions are in the higher levels. Of course, as there are 25 of these, I'm going to be speeding through them as quickly as possible. So let's see some reactions to my list. Of course, I cannot talk about reactions and not mention probably the most powerful reaction in the entire system, Reactive Strike. And this also includes any variations of this ability, like Eidolon's Opportunity for those with no taste that play as a summoner. When an enemy uses a manipulate action when they use a ranged attack, or when they exit a square within your reach or use a move action, you can Reactive Strike them so long as you have this ability. If it's a crit, you disrupt that manipulate action specifically, and this particular reaction specifies that it doesn't contribute towards map, nor is map counted towards it. This one's nice and simple, and the fighter gets it from level 1, and there's a bunch of other ways to get this from the marshals. Honestly, if you can get this reaction, you definitely should, because it's just simple, powerful, and amazing. Aid technically is a reaction, but it does mean that you have to prepare to aid during your turn, which is going to cost you an action. When you do this, you pick a skill and something that would make sense in that moment, such as using athletics to try and hamper the enemy, or using deception to try and distract them to assist an ally, and it usually has a DC 15 check. On a success, the ally gains a +1 to the particular check that they are doing against that enemy. On a crit success, it's +2, and once you become a master in the particular skill that you are using, that crit success becomes a +3, and when you're legendary, it's +4. And the DC doesn't really ever change. It always tends to be DC 15. Again, this one's nice and simple, and it's something that everyone can do, but it does cost you an action on your turn, which is the downside. It is phenomenally good though, especially as you level up. I'm just going to lump in all of the champion reactions here together because they're kind of crazy. Retributive Strike, Liberating Step, Glimpse of Redemption, Flash of Grandeur, Iron Command, all of these are amazing reactions available to the champion subclasses. And they're going to become your bread and butter as that particular class. I'm not going to talk all that much about them because I could do a whole class guide on the champion, which I might do at some point. Suffice to say, some of the most powerful reactions in the entire system are available to champions, which is lovely. Shield Block is a general feat that many martials get for free at level 1, but for those that don't, as I said, it's a general feat that you can grab. When you have a shield in your hand and you spend an action raising it, which increases your AC by 1 to 3, you can then Shield Block for a reaction, which is going to reduce the damage that you take with the shield itself, taking the damage instead, minus the hardness value. And you take the remaining damage as well. But this is a great way to defend yourself against a little bit of damage, and whole builds can be built around using powerful shields. And for those that do not have a hand free or can cast spells, you can instead use the shield spell, which usually gives less AC but functions identically. However, once you shield block with the shield spell or the glass shield spell, you can no longer use it for another 10 minutes. But the glass shield actually explodes and damages enemies, which is kind of nice. A nice and simple way to use your reaction and a great way to keep yourself alive. Speaking of shields, the Fighter, Guardian, and Viking, I believe, can grab the Reactive Shield feat. And Bastions get this for free when you take that dedication. This basically has you automatically raise your shield as a reaction when you're about to get hit. The downside is, unless you have an extra feat to shield block, you're unable to shield block, as this is using that reaction. And do note that when you use Reactive Shield with your shield raised, that AC bonus lasts until the start of your turn, which is pretty cool. But still, this can potentially stop hits from happening entirely, because this happens when an enemy hits you, not when they target you. So if you know that this would have ended up avoiding the attack entirely, you can use it at the appropriate time and save yourself some damage. Great stuff. If you are a psychic, and I mean in PF2E, not in real life, though if you are a real life psychic, please contact me because I want to know if I'll ever find love again. And you pick the Infinite Ice Conscious Mind subclass, you can gain an amped version of Guidance, which allows you to use it as a reaction when an ally fails or critically fails an attack roll, perception check, saving throw, or skill check. The best part about this is that it's effectively retroactive. If it wouldn't have made any difference, then you cannot cast it, meaning that you're allowed to cast this when you know it would make a difference. So if your ally misses an attack by 1, you can say, okay, I'm going to change that then for a reaction and a focus point. It's just so freaking good. Also, psychics get a cooler, amped version of shield that they can cast on their allies, which is pretty fun as well. If you are a rogue, you can take Nimble Dodge from level 1, which happens when an enemy targets you with an attack and you can see them. It effectively works very similar to a normal shield. You just gain a +2 circumstance bonus to AC against said triggering attack. Swashbucklers can instead grab Flashy Dodge, which does exactly the same thing, except if the strike then misses, they gain Panache, which is great stuff. Nimble Dodge is a prerequisite to Nimble Roll, which allows you to potentially stride as part of that reaction, so long as the enemy misses you or you succeed at a save. And a Swashbuckler gets Flashy Roll, which is their version of that. Good stuff, not quite as good as Shield because it only lasts for a single attack, but still good fun to have. For the kineticist that is water-based, if you take acid, bludgeoning, fire, or slashing damage and you aren't off guard to the attack, you could use Deflecting Wave and gain resistance from the triggering effects equal to your level if it's bludgeoning or slashing, or double if it's acid or fire. And you can do this every single turn if you keep getting hit, as a fun little ability for the kineticist. finally, we are on to some of the reactive spells, as I call them. When a creature within 60 feet strides, you can make them treat that terrain as difficult terrain so long as they fail at a will save. And on a crit fail, you get to tell them where to move, which is just so much fun. This is only rank 1, so if you've got access to rank 3 and 4 spells, you could just slot a few of these in your rank 1 slots to potentially really muck up a GM's turn. For multiple encounters, potentially great spell. Another cool rank 1 spell, if you're the target of a strike or need to do a reflex save against a damaging area effect, you can throw up some Interposing Earth, which creates a little barrier between 2 squares. And it gives you standard cover against the triggering effect, which is +2, which is pretty nice. On top of that, it does actually reduce the damage a teeny tiny bit that would otherwise be dealt to you. It's only 2, but hey, it's still extra damage being reduced. It has a little bit of health and stuff as well. It doesn't heighten amazingly well, but it's still a fun spell to protect yourself every now and then. It's kind of like a Reactive Shield for a spell slot anyway. Interesting. The Fake Out is exclusive to the Gunslinger, and basically this works exactly the same as Aid, except you make an attack roll to aid the triggering check, and you don't have to have spent an action preparing to aid when you use this. And because Gunslingers have a +2 due to their better proficiency with firearms and crossbows than basically any other class, that check is almost always going to be a critical success. It's such a powerful reaction and probably one of the strongest in the entire system. Bear in mind that they very quickly get master proficiency with their guns, meaning it's going to be a +3 on that. Basically guaranteed crit success. Crazy good. When an enemy deals piercing, slashing, or persistent bleed damage to you, and you can bleed, you can use a rank 2 spell slot so long as they're within 30 feet to force them to make a will save with Blood Vendetta. On a success, they take half of 2d6 persistent bleed damage. On a fail, they take the full damage, and they have weakness 1 to piercing and slashing damage. On a crit fail, it's double persistent damage. This heightens relatively well. Also, it's a fun spell and great once again if you've got a bunch of spell slots going for free. Make them bleed. Stand Still is a similar action to Reactive Strike, and it's available to monks. It's specifically when an enemy tries to use a move action or they leave a square that you can reach, none of them manipulate stuff. So it's very similar to Reactive Strike, except that if it's a crit and it was a move action, that action is disrupted, which makes this pretty cool and possibly slightly better than Reactive Strike if they do move. A great reaction and a great way to annoy your GM. Specifically for an Earth Kineticist, when you're attacked by a non-reach melee weapon or unarmed attack, you gain resistance equal to your level to the physical damage from said attack, and then the enemy has to make a fort save against your class DC. On a fail, they're slowed 1 until the end of their next turn, and on a crit fail, they're petrified until the end of their next turn. You can only do this once per hour against each individual enemy, but it's still a really amazing ability, despite the fact that it has the incapacitation trait and the overflow trait as well. Still really cool. Going back to the monk here, Deflect Projectile is really fun. If it's a ranged attack and you're not off guard and someone shoots at you, you can spend a reaction to gain a +4 circumstance bonus to AC against that attack. Later on, for monastic archer monks, you can grab the Return Fire feat as well, which allows you to shoot that projectile straight back at them, which is pretty amazing. Fun stuff. For Primal and Arcane casters out there at rank 3, when an ally is targeted by a ranged attack within 60 feet, you can flick a Cloud Dragon's Cloak and make them hidden for the purposes of that particular attack, meaning that the attacker then has to make a DC 11 flat check to target that creature. That's effectively a 50-50 chance of the enemy missing that attack entirely. That's such a powerful spell. I absolutely hate it when my players use it. That's how you know it's good. Available as a 3rd rank spell to Arcane and Occult casters, when an ally within 20 feet of you makes a ranged attack roll, you can force the enemy that they're shooting against to make a will save with a Shadow Projectile, and on a fail they take 3d8 mental damage and they're off guard against the triggering attack. Even on a success, they're still off guard against that attack, which could potentially turn a miss into a hit or a hit into a crit, and on a crit fail they take double damage from your 3d8. Good fun. This one is so much fun. When you're crit by a damage dealing effect or strike, you can make a wooden double appear to take some of the damage, and you also get to take the step action after that, which is pretty awesome. The wooden double has hardness 5 and 20 hit points, which is basically 25 hit points. This heightens pretty good as well. It's honestly just a great way to reduce some damage to yourself. Again, when you're in the high levels, you may as well be slotting a bunch of these into your rank 3 slots, because why not? I love this ability. Available to rogues or red mantis assassins. When a creature within your reach is hit by a melee attack from one of your allies, you get to make a strike as well. This one's just really strong. It's just you capitalizing on battering someone just as your ally does, and there's so many opportunities to use it, and more often than not, the enemy's going to be off guard when you decide to do this. So hooray for crits. What a great feat. Drop Dead is a fun rank 5 spell available to arcane, divine, and occult casters. When a creature within 120 feet is hit by an attack from an enemy, you can trick them into making them think the creature is dead when they actually just turn invisible. Yes, I know it's invisible, I'm speaking weird for some reason. They are actually allowed to potentially disbelieve it under certain conditions, and it is just the normal invisibility, meaning that your ally, as soon as they use a hostile action, is going to no longer be invisible. Still, the enemy will be off guard to them if they do choose to attack, which is awesome. It's just a great spell and can potentially stop an enemy from absolutely destroying an ally. Especially if you do this mid-turn, the enemies are going to have to stop and turn their attention onto someone else, which is great. Unless you're the new person they're targeting. Hee hee. I've seen this spell actually save multiple PCs' lives in my time as a GM. Breath of Life is a rank 5 spell available to divine casters. When a living creature within 60 feet of you dies, that is actually dies, not is knocked unconscious, you prevent it from happening and restore 5d8 hit points instead. If this doesn't work for death effects or disintegrate, but having one of these in your spell list is never going to do you any harm. Trust me, your allies or even allied NPCs will love you when it kicks in. As a rank 5 spell for arcane and occult casters, Shadow Siphon has you turn a spell within 60 feet into a weaker version. If you successfully counteract it, any creatures that would be damaged by that spell only take half as much damage, otherwise the spell just works as normal. It's pretty good stuff. You can massively reduce the amount of damage a spell is going to do. Very helpful indeed. For the witches out there, at level 12, you can take the Coven Spell when an ally within 30 feet casts a spell, and you can either apply one spell-shaped feat to the spell, which could be Reach or Widen or Conceal, etc., or you can simply make it deal more damage. And that damage will be a status bonus equal to its rank. It's nice and simple and doesn't cost you anything because it's just a reaction, so you can potentially just make one of your allies' spells better for a reaction every single turn. How is that not good? As a rank 7 spell, when someone casts a spell you're aware of, no matter where it's coming from, apparently, you can attempt to counteract it, and if you successfully counteract it, it instead continues with the caster as the target instead of you. Spell Riposte is amazing. It cannot affect area spells, sadly, but it's just really, really good. It is effectively you throwing up your middle finger when an enemy tries to target you with a spell. Being able to actually make them cast it on themselves is hilarious, and it's so brilliant that I love and hate it all at the same time. Nullify is a rank 10 spell, and it is just as powerful as it sounds. If a foe within 120 feet casts a 9th rank or lower spell, you just automatically counteract it, but you do lose 1d8 hit points per level of the triggering spell, which is not really going to be all that much health at those levels because you're basically going to be nearly max level when you do this. Incredibly powerful, and it's available to all traditions. Now that's the big list over and done with, and onto my giant list of runners-up. I'll get through these as quickly as possible. Opportune Riposte for Swashbucklers at level 1 exclusively. This is a fun one, it's just that you might want to save your reactions for other fun stuff like Reactive Strike, etc. Still a good one though. Unexpected Shift for Gnomes as a level 1 ancestry feat is pretty good. DC 16 flat check, and you gain resistance equal to your level against a triggering effect, or +2 circumstance to saving throws. I just don't like it because you become dazzled for a round. That one's annoying. It's still a solid ancestry feat though. Orc Ferocity, speaking of solid ancestry feats, the zombie gets a version of this as well, by the way. We always like this one. I mean, if you're an orc, you're just gonna take this because it could potentially stop you from going down, which is great. Definitely worth your time. Reactive Pursuit and Relentless Stalker, I like them. I just feel like if an enemy's moving out of your range, Reactive Strike is just a little bit better because you could either follow them while staring intently into their eyes, or you can just batter them instead. I prefer the latter, although I guess it does depend on how attractive they are. Cleave and Great Cleave, I do love these. The problem is that it does suffer from the multiple attack penalty, unlike Reactive Strike. It's still good, but again, you're gonna have crazy map, and Great Cleave has the same issues. Air Bubble. I love this one. It's just incredibly niche and incredibly specific. It has helped a couple of PCs in my campaigns, though. Gentle Landing and Air Cushion are probably a little bit more helpful than Air Bubble. Having fall damage reduced to 0 with these abilities is just really good. Lucky Escape. I do really like this one, but it's only once a day, and it's done before they roll their attacks. So you're not able to say, oh, did you crit me? Then roll again. They still may roll like 2 natural 20s or whatever. It's very solid, just not quite amazing enough to make it into my top 25. Unexpected Transposition. Swapping places with an ally to take their damage is pretty fun. Obviously, chances are you're going to be a spellcaster, so it's rank 6. It's a fun one, if not rather detrimental to yourself. Kind of like watching one of my videos. Clinch Strike is great for wrestlers, though that's a little bit too niche for me. Helpful Reload, great for your allies, but usually if your allies have reload actions to do, they're usually playing some sort of action compression class that doesn't really need you to reload for them. It's worth having though. Fire is only a cantrip, and it's pretty good. Obviously it's only for fire damage, which reduces its usefulness, but you know, fire damage is pretty common. Avenge in Glory, I do like this one. I love the Dwarf Ancestry feats. I think most of them are amazing, and a bonus to your attack rolls is kind of awesome. Goblin Scuttle is fun, because it's a little bit silly, but at the same time, it can be really useful. If you step away from enemies and stuff as your allies move in, that can be helpful. Your Next is great, especially when you get it to Legendary. At that point, it's a free action, which is actually kind of amazing. I think the normal one is okay, but it's kind of rough losing your reaction just for a Demoralize. It's a free action though, 10 out of 10. Mockingbird's Disarm is pretty fun, but you need to build for it, and you really need to build into it. It's a little bit too niche because of that. Crane Flutter. I'm so desperate to actually have a PC in a campaign that's a monk, because I love Crane Flutter. Anything to do with a crane stance, etc. But I am a forever GM. Woe is me. But this is very niche indeed, probably more so than Deflect Projectile. Dodge Away, I think, is one of my favorite reactions, and it's a little bit better than Hit the Dirt, but it's Acrobats only. Very few people ever actually build into Acrobat, but getting to step away from an enemy if they miss you, and with you being a master, you get to step 10 feet, which is awesome, is just phenomenally good. Intercept Attack. This one is probably controversial. It is fantastic. It's one of the base abilities of the Guardian. I just don't really like the fact that you have to take the damage. I get that you get the resistance to physical damage as a Guardian, but the champion one just removes the damage. It just gets rid of it, you know, and no one has to take it, it's just gone. I just don't really quite understand why the Guardian still has to take most of that damage. Plus, it's any type of damage for the champion, whereas the Guardian one is physical only unless you take certain feats. It's still a great ability, and I love the Guardian. I think it's a genuinely fantastic class, but I don't know, I feel like this could just be a little bit better. Right, so that is the end of my 50th video. Thank you very much for watching, and especially for those who have stuck around with this channel if you're a long-time viewer. Please consider subscribing, sharing it with a friend, liking, and tell me about your favorite reactions in PF2E. There are so many of them, so I've definitely missed some of the greatest ones, and I want to hear all about them. And please consider checking out my artist, Leandro Notado. There's links in the description to his work, and he was an absolute joy to work with. Last but not least, I'd like to thank my archivists and members: Max Magnus 20019, Ozzy Smith, Nikolai Milenkovic, Carl Travis, Bentfair at Terex13, and patrons and archivists Clash, Q, and Patrick O'Donoghue. Thanks guys for sticking around for so long. But for now, this is Dominic of the Dominic, wishing you a fond farewell, and until next time, goodbye.